everyone. Thank you all for joining us today for the next installment in the Grenzebach Lear and Associates webinar series, Participation Before Graduation, Practical Tips for Persuading Young Alums to Give. We have over 100 participants joining us today, and we are thrilled to have each of you take part in today's session. Today's webinar is co-presented by Jeff Bradley, GG&A Vice President for Advancement Communications, and Beth Braxton, Director of Annual Giving at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Jeff is the newest member of the GG&A consulting team and brings to advancement writing deep knowledge of the higher education community that comes from both teaching and fundraising. Jeff brings to the firm a journalist's skill in conducting research and producing quality prose on deadline, and a storyteller's gift for touching the heart while captivating the mind. We are absolutely delighted to have Beth Braxton join us today to share some of the outstanding young alumni programs currently underway at UNC. Beth began her career at UNC in 1999 as the Director of Alumni Campaigns for the UNC Medical Foundation and assumed her current position in November 2003. In today's session, Jeff and Beth will offer a lively presentation on the question facing every college and university development office: how to convince young alumni to give. Beth will describe how UNC involved undergraduates in philanthropy and raised the senior campaign participation from 9 to 40%. She will share with us materials used by her office and discuss the cost involved and mention pitfalls and triumphs. Jeff will discuss how young alumni differ from other alums and the ideas and themes that resonate with them. Our presenters are welcoming any questions you have throughout today's session, and we'll be answering those questions as they come in, with any remaining questions addressed in the time remaining within the hour. Please use the chat function on the right-hand side of your screen. Select all participants from the drop-down menu and send Jeff and Beth your questions. Tomorrow morning, we will send a recording of the session along with the presentation slides and a short survey to gain your feedback. Thank you all again for joining us today, and now I'll turn it over to Jeff to get us started.
Hi, Jeff Bradley here. I'd like to give everyone a great welcome for joining our webinar today. This is a most appropriate day. Today is Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. Those of us who work in annual funds, our year always begins in September, and it's a year of, at this point in the year, of hope and dreams, and so it's a great day to talk about this. Okay, let's get going. First of all, let's begin with what we know about young alumni. They are likely to have significant loans, and they sometimes view those loan payments as gift to their alma mater. They often think that a small gift doesn't matter. They join older alums in that one. Kind of the good news is they're more connected to faculty. They tend to be more connected to faculty members than older alumni. This might be through social media. They're used to interacting with faculty in email in ways that older graduates might not have done. They are still sharing articles or commenting on things with faculty members. Young alumni are very interested in sustainability. They may have participated in efforts in their university while they were students, and they really appreciate and sometimes demand green mailings. Green mailings being recycled paper or soy inks, things like that. They're also interested in the business of the alma mater, how it works as an organization, and they want to hear about it. There have been several studies on young alumni giving. We're not going to go through every one of these, but I'll just mention them so that you can look them up. We have a link on this presentation, and when we send it to you, you can find it. Convio did one on the next generation of American giving, an online survey. What we're pulling out of that for today is that the solicitation channel and the transaction channel may be different. Now, what that means is someone may get a direct mail piece, but then they make their gift on the web, or vice versa. They may have seen some things on the web, and then when the mail piece comes in, they send in a check. You don't always know where the information that they got came from. And this is a big one, and we'll come back to this a little bit later. Websites are often consulted before gifts are made. They want to find out something about what this money is going to be used for, and they're going to go to that website. Let's see. The Engagement Strategies Group did a really interesting one, the Mood of Alumni 2010. They just released this a couple of months ago. They interviewed 700 people, and they came up with a series of barriers to giving, why people don't give. Some of these will be very customary, very something you've seen a lot of. I've paid enough in tuition. I don't need to send you any money. My alma mater doesn't really need my money. We hear that a lot. Other ones, you haven't given me a good enough reason to give, or my alma mater hasn't connected with me except to ask for money. I feel like, and these last two are kind of related, I feel like my donations go into a black hole, and I want my donations to go for a specific purpose and do not have that option. So that gives us some ways to go there. So today's topic is how to best influence these people. And the answer is get to them before they become alumni. Several colleges and universities are doing this across the country, but a terrific one is UNC at Chapel Hill, and we'll kind of hand the ball over to Beth now to describe the undergraduate program she has.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Can you mute your phones in your office? Okay. Thanks for joining us today. Y'all, we can hear people talking, so if you can mute your phones at your phone, that would be really, really helpful. So the millennials, we need to think about who our audience is right now with current students. They're the millennials. They're the largest generation in the history of America. They're approximately 30% larger than the boomer generation. More students are going to college and graduating from college than ever in the history of the United States. It's very heavily women, 57% versus 43%. It's been that way at Carolina now for 20 years, 30 years, and they're also least Caucasian and most racially and ethnically diverse. And what does this mean? We need to think about these generational differences in our solicitation techniques and the ways we're marketing and getting to students. One of the things you need to also think about this group is they're confident and optimistic. They're very team-oriented. They're hard workers. They're risk-averse. They're very goal-oriented. They respect institutions, and they're close with their parents. One of the things to remember is this is the first group who had baby on board signs, and so you have to think about these attributes as you're working with this group of students. I'm going to give you some examples of a couple programs and some differences in these programs. First of all, University of Pennsylvania has the Penn Traditions. And in about 2001, their current president was walking across campus and saw a sign that showed participation between the University of Pennsylvania and the other Ivy Leagues, and they ranked last. And there was an 18% participation in 2001 with their senior class. So she really wanted to change that and improve what they were doing, and so they created the Penn Traditions. And so it's about everything behind the Penn Tradition program is to create student understanding and awareness of Penn's institutional mission, their history and their traditions, how University of Pennsylvania is financed, what the university goals are, the role of alumni and students within the greater Penn community. And so what they wanted to do is start educating all 4 classes of undergraduate students. But they don't solicit into their senior year. So they spend first year, sophomore, and junior year really marketing and having specific programs and with a very large budget. I've heard close to 6 figures. And has it paid off? Well, in 2009, their participation rate among their senior class was 70%. And again, that was 18% in 2001 and 70% in 2009 after the Penn Traditions program had been in effect for several years. So it really paid off. Emory has a really neat program. They have a senior class program that you give to a specific fund. It's a senior class gift, and it's one specific fund. It provides book scholarships for students, and they're really working with students, excuse me, to try to get them to give. On another note, what they've started, because they were realizing they had trouble getting participation among all their students, is they started the Blue Pig. And I don't know if you've heard about this, but your freshman year, every freshman gets a piggy bank, a blue piggy bank. And they're asked to put change in it all during the year, and they have a couple gatherings where people turn in their change, and they count your change, and they assign the amount to a specific student rather than just one large amount. This allows the students to be stewarded, thanked for their specific gift, and then continue to try to work on renewing them. But also to see that their money, their change really does matter, and every size of a gift matters. They use great social media. They kidnap the pig and have pictures of him around campus, and you guess where he is. And their average gift is about $3.07 per student twice a year, so a little bit over $6. But they've gone from, in 2005, about 2% of the student body donating, and with a total of $5,000, to this past year, 2010, 13% of the student body gave, with a total of $25,000, all in change. So it gets people in the habit of giving and seeing that their change really does make a difference. Another program, and this is McGill University in Canada. It's a brand new program, so I don't have the results for it. But just to show you there can be different programs or just what's based on your culture. McGill gives students 6 different projects to support. They range from an e-gator, which is an electronic contraption to drive across campus and work on maintenance, to a project in Africa. So it depends on what works in your institution, whether you want to be very specific about your gift. You pin, it goes to the pin fund, and then Seeds of Change, they give you some opportunities and some variety of where to go. Another way to work on your senior campaign, Berkeley recently had a challenge in fiscal year 2010. Their goal was 2,010 donors, and they wanted to raise a total of $100,000. They had some donors who were willing to match senior gifts 3 to 1. So if you gave $25, they would add $75. So it would be basically your gift became $100. And I like the way that they explained some of the senior class history, when it started, which was 1874. And you can see, based on the slide here, from 2001, where they raised $38,000 to 2009, they raised $87,000 plus.
Beth, so, let me break in here. How many other universities use this challenge method like that? That sounds fantastic.
We do. We've started, well, we missed it last year, but we've had it in the past, and it does impact. Brown University has done it and has increased their young alumni participation by 86% in like 7 or 8 fiscal years.
Do they tend to have this high ratio, like 3 to 1 or something like that? Because that's amazing.
It depends. Some of them will do 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 1 to 1. Some of them will do it 3 to 1 up until December 31st, and then 2 to 1 or 1 to 1 afterwards, depending on how much money they have and how they want to market it. I personally say market as simply as you can, because if it gets too confusing, people get lost in the confusion of it. I will tell you that Berkeley's results is for the senior class, they had 1,860 gifts, which was a little shy of their participation goal, but it was 27% participation, and they raised $100,200. For the young alumni pre-challenge, the 5-year average was 2,036 donors, and in 2010 they had 4,561 donors, which was a 124% increase. Wow. So they went in a young alumni participation from 5% to 11% by using a challenge. So
that's terrific.
It's been very helpful. They actually ran out of money and had to go back to the donors and ask them would they be willing to continue to add money to the fund because it was going so well.
That's the kind of problem you want to have.
Absolutely. So I'm going to tell you what we do at Carolina. We have a senior campaign. We've seen a 110% increase in student giving since July 2006. We have a senior class. We had a senior class gift, and we changed it to a senior campaign, and I'll tell you why in a second. And we also have we started thinking about this captive audience that we had of students for 4 years, and what are we going to do with those to help year by year, increasing their knowledge about the importance of philanthropy and what Carolina does with the money. We stopped physical class gifts in June 30th, 2006 was the last year we did a physical gift. It was a welcome sign. I personally believe that there's a psychology of using the term class gift that makes people think, well, I've given my gift. I gave my class gift. I'm done. I don't need to give anymore. And so we went to a senior campaign. We changed from a physical gift where students voted on what they wanted to the annual fund model at Carolina, which is give anywhere. I joke all the time it's going to be on my tombstone. I don't care where you give, just give. And so we went to that model because we started seeing that young alumni, we had to re-educate them after they were gone. Well, they're hard to re-educate after they're gone because do they open their mail? We don't know. At that time, we weren't doing many emails, and we're doing more, of course, now. A lot of them are in grad school. You know, how do you give to the welcome sign, and then we have to re-educate you the next year if we want you to give anywhere, even though even though last year we wanted you to give to the welcome sign.
Beth, sometimes people are very attached to these, these things that they give. And did you get much pushback when you sort of shifted away from that?
Well, actually, I will talk about that in a minute, but we went very prepared to our senior class president and vice president with the argument. The gifts were not university priorities. Participation was going down, young alumni participation was going down, and why we were making this change. They had great questions. We were able to overcome all their objections. The senior class president and vice president really got behind us and marketed it to their friends and to the newspaper and really got behind it. But part of that is I was willing to take on the fact that they would be mad at me for a couple years because no offense to students who are here, but when you're a student, because I was the same way, you think the university revolves around you. And when you get out, you realize it doesn't, and you realize that that fountain, you're never going, how many of us have ever taken our children to look at our senior class gift? I have not. I know people who haven't, but they wanted something on campus. We found a way, and I'll show you ways we could overcome that. We wanted to create a habit of philanthropy in our students, and then as they evolved into young alumni. We wanted the gifts from the students, not the parents. We don't solicit parents for a senior campaign gift, and part of that is it's an annual fund gift. We solicit our students. We solicit parents for something different, but we solicit our students. We don't say, oh, you've got some money left. If you have money left over in your security deposit, give it to us. Because, again, that's not their money. We want them to realize that if they give us $20, they're not going to miss that $20, and that they feel good, they're stewarded properly. We don't believe in any quid pro quo. We don't give you a T-shirt or a mug or anything. If you get a car decal. And we also wanted to steward the student to begin his or her donor experience, that they're thanked properly, that they understand the impact, in as many ways, and then we also have opportunity to solicit them again based on where they've given and what their loyalty was too. Part of the reason we started all this was very lackluster participation rates among our senior campaign, and back when we did our senior gift. And so 04 to 06, it was in the 13% range. But more importantly, our young alumni participation was really lagging. For 1 year out, so the class of 2004, in fiscal year 05, 5.9% of those 3,800 students gave. Now remember, our classes are getting bigger because we have more students coming to college. So for us, 25% of our students have graduated in the last 10 years. So if their participation rate is low, it's pulling down the overall participation rate of the university. Not that I don't get that caught up in participation rates, but what we find is if students who give regularly, young alumni give regularly the first 5 years when they're out, they give 8 times more by the time of their 20th reunion than those who only gave once during those 5 years. So it's about building that loyalty. And that's research done by a professor at Texas A&M based on databases of very major universities. So we created our Love Your Legacy campaign. It has consistent messaging, and it's using the Carolina Annual Fund model. Give to the area that you love. And we started explaining how much it costs to run the university, how much came from the state, how much came from tuition, but that depending on the year and the stock market, our private giving equals state support, which most people didn't know. Most people thought my tuition and the state pay for everything. Why do I need to give to Carolina? So we started running ads that looked like this in our newspaper, and we would rotate the different designations you could give to educate students about the different funds because we have a ton. So, and also trying to reach out to our students all 4 years to educate them, we created a Hill Raisers Council. It's an officially recognized student organization. It encompasses all undergraduate students, and we do solicit beginning first year, but it really is an educational component. We get about 5% participation freshman year and sophomore year, and it creeps up to 7 or 10 junior year, and then senior year it goes up. But we've played with this Hill Raiser Council a little bit and added to it. It formally started in 2008. We've had steady growth every year. We went from 3 or 4 student volunteers to, about 40 who are involved, 20 at any given time who show up to meetings, and we added a full-time director of student giving. So we have a young alum who's in the position, so they understand navigating the systems at Carolina. And for soliciting and educating, the Hill Raisers do that. They solicit their peers, and they also educate their peers. They're trained, and I'll show you what they do on that one too. So in our different ways we're trying to educate students, we started a tag day, which we stole from Queen's University in Canada, which is the symbolic day at Carolina where funding sources other than private giving runs out. So there's about 25% of the year left. As you can see, it's cold. It's February, and sometimes you can be in bathing suits in February, but unfortunately not the last 2 years. And one of the things we really try to do is explain to students, without endowment income and private giving, our semester would end today. We're still wearing winter coats, and we haven't gone on spring break. We ran this ad, one to the left, in our newspaper, and it just talks about different costs, and these are our old logos and everything. But the tag up on the right-hand corner of the ad, we had big banners made that look like this, and we put across campus, and then we handed out tags to students, and I've got a picture of that.
Did you ever hang any of the tags on any doors or any equipment or anything like that?
No, but that's what we're doing, something like that in 2 weeks with our tuition-free day. So we had different areas. We had different tables set up across campus at different schools or different areas that did get a lot of private giving, like performing arts. Students, volunteers were trained to have a conversation. We gave away buttons and pins that different schools and units had given us. We had pizza to get people in, but we're, again, trying to explain why we need private support, how much comes from tuition, how much comes from private giving, how much comes from the state, and just continue to have that engagement and those conversations. Picture of the tag on between a couple buildings, which were heavily funded with private giving, and then students handing out the tags. We had about 5,000 tags made, and they handed them out all across campus at different bus stops and different popular areas on campus. In 2010, the Hill Raisers really started cooking with gas, as my vet likes to say. We had a great student who was a PR major, and she changed the logo, and they've revamped it, came up with, I think, better looking things. So we ran an ad again, but we have this very identifiable Hill Raiser logo now. All Hill Raiser volunteers get a long sleeve gray T-shirt with this logo on it that they wear when they're in the pit working or at tag day, and we handed out T-shirts with the paid by friends, alumni, and students of Carolina on them. We had 1,000 of those. Our total budget for student giving is $10,000. We go over it a little bit every year. I'll rob Peter to pay Paul out of another budget. So total, we spend about $13,000, primarily on ads and T-shirts and pizza. But I have a friend who owns a restaurant, and he gives us a good deal on it. So we gave away T-shirts all across campus. We had snow on the ground, which is very unusual in North Carolina. The picture to the right and the bottom are the person on the left is our student giving director. She graduated in 2007, and then the person on the right is was the chair of the Hill Raisers. She just graduated and is in Washington, D.C. The man in the middle is our chancellor. He's wearing one of the T-shirts. He wore it all around campus. He wore it to meetings, and so if people asked him, what is that T-shirt about, he explained it to them. He's 47, very accessible. All the students call him by his first name, as does everybody else who works here. So when he walks across campus wearing Hillraiser T-shirt, they're all stopping him and saying, "What is that about?" But we really were trying to educate students. We had more units in schools put banners up. They paid for to put the banners up themselves. We're not changing the logo this year, so that's keeping costs down. The next day, we ran an ad. I'm sorry, we didn't run an ad. We sent an email to all students explaining what they saw. Yesterday was Tag Day. And we also, during Tag Day, viral word got out through Facebook and stuff. People were changing their profile picture to the Tag Day logo. And so our web traffic the day before, the day of, and the day after Tag Day was up 40%. So it went to the Hillraiser and the annual giving website to drive information and education. One of the things that people wanted to know was how would they get their name someplace so they could come back and show their children. And so we have pavers that we put in a very central place at campus. We have something that explains what it is, how it started in 2007, and that you get the Tar Heel insignia if you have record participation. So 2007 had record participation. I'll show you specifics in a minute. 2008, 2009, and then 2010 we did not have a challenge donor, and we did not reach. They will be the first class so far not to have the Tar Heel insignia. So it's gotten this current class all fired up to get. They don't want to be the second class without one. Things we do with our Hillraisers, we have the ambassadors positions. This is some new things we did. We have Hillraiser council members who agree to do 3 to 5 presentations a semester to specific audiences on campus. So, someone will go and talk to either varsity sports team or club sports teams. They've written a PowerPoint, which is available and you'll receive tomorrow. We came up with a general idea. They can change it. We just have to approve it. They sign a contract that they'll do the presentations. They sign a contract that they'll let us see the PowerPoint before they go crazy on it. And so we also have an events coordinator who's in charge of our Tag Day and our tuition-free day to coordinate volunteers and food and everything. We have a social media coordinator, same thing, to make sure they're getting messages out, news about Carolina, and working on everything. And then we've added tuition-free day. As part of the things we're providing, I also have our job descriptions and the application to join to be one of these ambassadors. This is the ad we're going to run on the 27th for tuition-free day. We will be in a very visible place in the pit on campus, and if you will update your contact information and people start talking to you, you can enter your name in for a drawing for an iPad. It is a visual way to show people that the year would end, and your semester just started, you just got in your sorority or your fraternity, and we're already, you're going to have to pack up and move home, and you haven't even pulled your winter clothes out. So we're excited about this. The stop sign, we have stickers made that professors have agreed to wear, and if asked, some of them will voluntarily explain what it is. Others who are uncomfortable doing that the first minute of class will do it if someone asks. Our students are wearing it. Our chancellor's going to wear one. And then we also have these stop signs that we are, Jeff, putting around campus. Mm-hmm. And we'll put them on different pieces of equipment and buildings and everywhere all across campus just to raise awareness. Again, we've got the Hillraiser logo, so to continue to brand. And then our tagline, see what you can do for Carolina.
We've had a question that came in about the logo. Mm-hmm. Why the tag? Does it indicate a sale, or what was the reasoning behind that logo?
That it was paid for by not state funds, by friends and family and alumni and corporations, and that there is a price tag to running a university, and it doesn't just happen in a vacuum, and it doesn't just happen with state dollars and tuition, but that other people have to contribute, and that price tag in some cases can be very expensive. So it's just a visual that we decided to use. Yeah.
Okay.
The keys to success on all of this is you have to get the students buy-in. You've got to have them set and get behind your goals. For us, the first year, they set a 25% participation. We had to get the senior class marshals on board because they were going to solicit their peers. Well, now the Hill Raisers solicit their peers as well. Students solicit each other all year long. It's better for the students to lead the publicity efforts, that they're the spokespeople rather than the development office. We had originally our newspaper was going to run an article that we were forcing this change on seniors because they wanted to take their children to see the fountain. And our senior class president got on the phone, talked to the editor, talked to people, and that article at 2 o'clock in the morning changed from an article to an editorial supporting the change and the program and why. So that was real important. We got administration behind it. We've had challenge donors. The first year they came up with a challenge donor. We've had to in the last couple of years. We were unsuccessful at coming up with one last year, and it affected our participation. The chancellor does send an email to all seniors explaining how it's important to give, getting all of your schools and units involved if you possibly can, because students are all across campus. They're not just in the pit. For us, we have to be in the fraternities, in the sororities, your professors, your deans. Everybody has to be involved in supporting this. And then the media. You have to be prepared to tell this over and over and over and over and over again, because we get older and we understand, but we're always talking to 18 to 22-year-olds who don't understand, philanthropy the way we do. They think if, get everybody to give $20, we'll give them a T-shirt. No, we have to explain to them that's not a gift. What if we have a concert? No, that's not a gift. So having to explain why we're doing this, texting. I have no desire to text and get people to send in $5 on their cell phones. I want them to make a gift to Carolina so I can thank them and solicit them the next year. I may or may not I may or may not know who made a gift through their cell phone carrier, and so that's not important to me. For
Beth,
us,
let me kick in with a question here. When you talk about the low support that the state gives to state schools, this is very common across the board. Do you ever fear or get any sort of pushback that you're seeming ungrateful, or that some legislator might get ticked off about this?
No, because almost always our language says that we're very grateful for the state support. We make sure we let them know, one, that we're very lucky in North Carolina with 24% state support. A lot of public universities are nowhere near where we are, but it's still not what we would need to remain to be a world-class university. And the value of someone's degree, of my degree in '88 is based on how great these kids are today.
But that's a good idea to keep that kind of language in mind in referring to the state contribution.
For us, one of the things we really like about the Hill Raisers is that it really gives our students real-world experience. They're doing public relations. They're doing logo creations. They're getting out in front of their peers and speaking. We have a lot of students who are now realizing you can be a fundraiser as a profession and want to get involved in it. They're setting goals. They're talking to top-level administrators. They're evaluating whether something worked or didn't, and they're also doing their own strategic planning. So it's great for resumes.
And when you need volunteers down the line, where would they go?
That's right, and it's another great point. Our Hill Raisers and our senior marshals are great young alumni council volunteers, and in the last 5 years, you almost always see a marshal or a Hill Raiser council member chair one of our young alumni councils across the country. They're definitely involved, but in many times they're chairing them. It helps us with cross-campus relationships because if students are starting to give to the journalism school, then that's hopefully increasing their participation down the road too, building more loyalty, getting people in the habit of giving to an area that's important to them. It's a great way for us to gather information. We get cell phone and email addresses. For us, cell phone numbers we add to our database. We will call someone on a cell phone. If you are a lost alumnus or alumna with a cell phone number, we'll call you, because many times your phone number, if it's a cell, is still right, and so we can still find you. Always evaluate, always look how you can make it better, and and fine-tune it and tweak it. Don't be so settled into, oh, well, we've already done it this way, we can't change it. Yeah, you can. I mean, one, your classes are evolving, and the reality is the students have to see this stuff so many times, and so you're trying to reach them as many ways as possible. And if something doesn't work, don't do it just because you've always done it, and move on. And again, you have to have patience, because you're always going to hear, let's do a concert, and so you're always having to say, that doesn't count. Oh, let's give T-shirts. We must say that 100 times a month. I mean, it's just is the understanding that we're having to build and their level of knowledge. So does it work? The blue box for every year shows the participation in their senior year. So we went from 13.9 in 04 to 39% this past fiscal year. Our highest year so far has been 42%. The white box is that class the year after they graduated.
Let me go back just a moment there. Look what happened in 2004. The giving rate for the senior campaign was 13.9. You drop down to 2007, it jumps up from, you kind of stay at 13, you lose a little bit the next year, then 13 again, then you jump to 30. Do you think that's a reflection of they got this message for 4 years?
Yes, that, and they got that they could give anywhere rather than a divisive class gift that, less than a third vote of the class voted on and wasn't a university priority. I don't want to give to a fish tank, which was one of our class gifts one year. And I may not want to give to a scholarship, which is the Carolinas model. We don't say, which is one of the things students said, you said, young alumni said, I don't want to go into black hole. I want to know where it goes. Well, at Carolina, you can know where it goes. And so change in messaging, change in the way we allowed people to give to be more donor-centered. So the white box is, so in fiscal year 05, the class of 04 had a 5.9% participation 1 year out. Look at class of 07, the year, so in fiscal year 08, they had a 7% participation. And then this past year, 09, in fiscal year 10, the class of 09 had the highest participation rate, 10.4%. It took the class of 05 5 years to get to 10%. It took 09 1 year, because we had been consistent in our messaging, and it just, our young alumni counselors were taking off, and people knew why it was important to give, and we continue to see that to grow. So
those are tremendous numbers. Wow.
Yeah. So we've been really, really, really pleased with it.
We've had a question. How many, first of all, how big of a annual fund staff do you have there, and then how many people are devoted to this project?
I have 7 total on staff, including myself, and we have 1 person who's devoted to it. But I think one of the things that works really well is we have a director of diversity and annual giving, and we have a director of young alumni. So they really look at that generational marketing, and make sure that we're sending diverse messages, and our students, we'll market. We're not saying, well, you're African American, therefore you want to give to the Stone Black Cultural Center, but we're going to tell the story of an African American student who is having a great experience, and that would go to our African American young alumni. But they work together, and they work so closely that whenever a student is handed off to young alumni or the diversity initiatives, then the relationships with the development office are already there. Now, I will say,
let me break in. You've got the 1 person whose full-time job it is to do this,
right?
And then, in addition to that person's salary, what do you think your budget is for this whole program?
$13,000.
$13,000 on top of the salary. Okay.
Right. And in all fairness, our director of young alumni was the senior class president in 2007 when we made this change. And when she came back from Europe after a year and stuff, she worked for another unit on campus for 5 months, and I stole her. So she has tremendous relationships, tremendous name recognition, and so she's been able to really build on those relationships. And we start really handing off the senior class to her during the week of senior week, so Meg, our senior class, our young alumni person, will go to all the senior class events, and so that people are getting to know her name and transition them from our student giving Lindsay Rava person to our young alumni Meg Peterson person. And she's handing out business cards, she's asking people where they're moving and getting involved, and she follows up. So those relationships become real important.
One more question. Please clarify the main difference between tuition-free day and tag day.
Tag day is all resources, private giving, tuition, state support, overheads, receipts like parking and tickets and tuition, on dorm fees and all that other stuff. And so that, and then this year, TARP money. So that, constitutes a certain percentage of our budget, and then private giving was about 25%.
So Tag Day is just to tell people where this money came from for these projects.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that without private giving, their semester would end in February, because private giving adds, that trite thing we all say, the measure of excellence.
So that is Tuition Day. That is Tag Day, excuse me.
Right, and Tuition Day is the day that tuition would run out, which is 10% through the year, which is around September 27th. It doesn't have to be exact.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Gotcha. All right.
So
Go ahead.
That's it. That's me.
Okay. Well, we have a few more questions that came in. Several people are listening from graduate schools, and you talk about the other units at UNC. Have you thought about replicating this in those places?
Well, typically, like our medical school, our business school, and our law school, they do their own campaigns. And so they continue, because we have a decentralized hybrid of a development office. So they do their own class campaigns for the graduate schools. So they will see the messaging. And when we say 10% of tuition, that's all tuition. It doesn't differentiate. But we focus more on undergraduates, and part of that's manpower and budget as well.
Okay. If you were queen of the annual fund at some college, do you think it would be a good idea to try to do this? And is this replicatable for graduate school programs?
Yes, I would do it, and I would absolutely replicate it for graduate programs. To me, it's a great way to show MBAs or medical students. Dental students around Carolina get a little aggravated that they pay the highest tuition of any of the professional schools. Well, they need to understand what their tuition pays for and where the rest of the money comes from. And so how can you explain that to people who are very busy, who are really might not take the time to read an email because they've got 300 pages of reading to do in the next couple of days. So what are ways that you can incorporate that messaging to your culture or your school? I think that's the great thing about fundraising. We can borrow each other's ideas and just adapt them and tweak them until they're right for our own institutions.
Okay. I think it would be terrific because, again, the same kind of thing, you've got the students there, and it's particularly for these graduate schools where they're going to be higher income earners, medical school, law, business, that could really pay off. Questions coming in, do you have counterparts around campus, such as members of Campus Life, Academic Services, who assist with your promotions and your promotions of the annual fund?
Not as much as we'd like. We work closely with the Student Affairs and the Carolina Union to go out, and they'll give us signage and they'll give us meeting spaces, but that is one of the things we'll continue to work on because we've got to reach all the different areas of campus. We could do a better job of that.
Okay, another question. Who made your, not the individual, but what kind of person makes your challenge gift for you? Where do you get that?
Well, let's see. This year was a donor I knew, and I asked him would he do it. But last year we asked the library to find someone, and they didn't want to ask a board member. So it depends. I'm trying to think who else has been. We had a gentleman a couple years ago who was very interested in trying to increase participation and get people in the habit of giving. So he did it one year. We had a little lady who promised money, and we asked her would she connect it to a challenge. However, we believe strongly that if the goals aren't met, then not to give the money.
Right.
It has to be legitimate.
Another question. I've seen other schools that will have a student-made video as a part of their marketing campaign for their senior campaign. Have you ever tried this, and is it a valuable tool?
Yes, we did it a couple years in a row. It hasn't been done lately, and I don't know why it hasn't. That's something I kind of forgot about. We do videos for the annual fund, and then we send them to students, but we haven't done one that students have done in a long time.
Okay. So, do your best student volunteers come to UNC with some fundraising experience from either high school or some other organization?
Very few of them do, but there are a couple.
Okay. All right. These are great questions. Please keep sending them in. Can you, and we'll be a little brief on this because it's a little bit outer. We want to keep our time going, but can you discuss your solicitations to young alumni after graduation?
We do everything. We do events, which are paid for by host committees because we have, you know, our young alumni budget is about $12,000 as well, and that includes her travel. We do direct mail. We do e-solicitations, a lot of social media, peer-to-peer solicitation among our young alumni councils, targeted letters from peers. We had our student body president was murdered a couple years ago, and so a lot of students gave then, and renewing them has you know, there was a very strong emotional attachment, and so that's been very successful. We had a small challenge last year, so we were able to market it. We're going to have at least a $125,000 challenge this year, and we will market it a lot of different ways.
Well,
phone-a-thon, we call people on cell phones.
Okay. One more question because we do have to move on. Who drives this process? Did you have to work with an on-campus student organization and somehow change their mission?
No, we created our own student organization and got approval for it, and every year we go through the approval process. Only difference is we never ask for money from student government for any of our programs.
Okay. Please keep sending in your questions to Beth. We will try to get her to answer those offline and get them back to you. We want to hear your questions, but I'm going to move on with the presentation now. Beth, thank you so much. That was terrific. Sure. Okay, let's go. One of the things I do is write annual fund letters for a variety of universities and independent schools. Most recently, I've written for Cornell University, the University of Delaware, and Johns Hopkins. And here are some themes that I think resonate with young alumni. Some of them are the same as others, but they particularly relate with young alumni. First of all, many gifts have a great impact. What is that impact? How many, what are the dollar figures you can put on that? I don't think we in Annual Fund kind of get obsessed with participation rates, but I don't think that trying to get people to give to achieve a certain percentage is motivating. I mean, no one ever put down her checkbook and said to a husband or partner, gee, I think I just got us up to 60%. No one wants to give for that. So I wouldn't push that as much.
I agree.
Beth has talked about demonstrate the impact of giving with great examples and precise figures. I wrote a letter once for the Johns Hopkins Department of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering from the department chairman. And he talked about how useful it was to have money for things when students have needs that aren't in the budget. He talked about being able to spend $1,000 to send 5 engineering undergraduates to a conference in Cincinnati. They went in a car, all stayed in one room. But that was a very precise example of that. Instead of saying something vague such as for student support or something like that. People love these examples. Stress diversity in the student body and faculty recruitment. As Beth said earlier, this is the most diverse population in history. Diversity is important to them. And one way that if you're talking about faculty support in coming years as the baby boomers age out of university faculties and universities begin to replace their faculty at greater rates, this is a great time to have money to make a more diverse faculty, and this population responds to that. Discuss the business of the university, to talk about how the university as an organization is having to compete with other places. So students get this. They're very interested in this kind of thing. Again, jumping to selecting the signers for your appeals. That's always a challenging one. Whether to use the head of the institution. You see so many letters with the president on there. I think you should use that person very selectively, not try to stick them on every single one. The pro for it is it does come from the top official of the institution. The con is there's so many that have been on there. Classmates, always good. A peer can say things, can kind of brag on the university in a way that it would seem a little unseemly for the university to do so itself. Deans or others involved in the business of the university. I once saw, I wish I could say I'd written it, but I once saw an annual fund letter from a person in charge of the labs at a chemistry department, and he talked about making purchases and what certain things cost, and just almost had a laundry list there of what certain chemicals, certain apparatus, and things like that, and it was just very effective. You could see the needs of the organization. Faculty, of course, longtime faculty are good, but often we're doing some things in some of my clients with young faculty, people who can say, here's why I came to this university. I was attracted by the student population. I was attracted by the chance to work with world-class figures in my field. Students are great to sign to talk about the impact of the institution on them. And this is an interesting one, development officials. I tend to not use those because I feel like I'd rather hear, as a person getting the letter, I would rather hear from someone involved with the program, a student, a faculty member, a department head. Now, Beth, I know you have some letters where you do put officials on there. Can you kind of address why do you do that, Beth?
Yeah, our renewal letters come from me, and that will say last year you gave X amount of dollars and hope you'll renew, and they've been very successful. I mean, our participation rate, the lowest participation rate's around 8%, and some of them are as high as 40%. But we also have such a diversity. I mean, we'll have something come from the chancellor once a year, maybe twice a year. We'll have students, we'll profile students, we'll do faculty, we do videos. So we have such a range that it's just one of many different options.
And I guess it would be kind of strange to get a letter from a faculty member saying, well, you renewed last year but not the year before,
right.
Something like that. That would sound odd. Okay. One technique that the University of Delaware did, what I thought was interesting, they had two letters in one, regular 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, but the letter was one was from the president of the Student Government Association, and kind of an inset letter was a young lady who served on a student center activity committee, and she talked about how exciting this had been to be there to learn to manage budgets and work with things. And so he, as the student government, could kind of comment on her letter, and so you can do that different ways. You can have you've got the letters. First of all, they're attractive to the eye because they're different. They're not like our usual letters. You can get kind of 2 points of view in there. You can have one person, a student, a faculty member, someone like that, speaking about his or her program, and yet have the other person kind of commenting on it. And in this case that I just gave, it was 2 students on the letter, but having an undergraduate write a letter and then having the ask down in there is always a little awkward, I think, to have the student making the ask. And if you have a dean or someone like that in the kind of letter that's wrapping around it, I think that works a little better. We spoke earlier about tying the web to your mailings. I have sometimes gone to annual fund websites of colleges, and they tie the website there is not tied into the mailing at all. You wouldn't even know that there was a mailing. It's all about how to make a gift. If you want to make a gift of stock, give now. If you want to talk to our planned giving, here's a list of our staff, et cetera, et cetera. Many times when I interview people for my clients in getting ready to write a letter or an insert or something, I've got much more material than I can put into the print. I've got a Q&A. Sometimes the photographer has gotten several pictures. Maybe the subject has done the faculty person has done a publication or something that, of course, you couldn't put into the mailing, but someone might be interested in that, and you could give them a PDF that they could download. And maybe only a few would want to do that, but they, for the people who want it, that would be very good. Another thing would be a video of the person or a video from the person who signed the letter. Let's do some thinking about thanking. Dan Allenby works here at GGA, and he has a great blog called the Annual Giving Exchange. You can Google that and see some of his ideas. One of the things that Dan talks about is, as Beth is doing, educating alumni from the time students step on there. But he also talks about celebrating and recognizing first gifts when a young alumnus makes a gift. And in his blog, he said, just imagine the experience a donor would have if right after making their first gift, they got an email an hour later, a letter a week after that, a phone call a month after that, and a postcard 6 months later. These are called wow factors, something that just they go wow if they get an email that quickly. Some of the ways that you might think about doing that is some kind of a communication the day the gift comes in. What if a first-time donor would get a call or an email from a faculty member, a dean, or even the college president, or a handwritten postcard from an annual fund staffer, someone in your office, or these other people? Now, I know what you're thinking at first. You're thinking, well, this is crazy. We can't do all that. But when, perfect is the enemy of the good. When you do that just a little bit, you'll hear that you'll get great response from people. It's a great thing for people in your office to just call up someone and say, thank you for that gift. It just came across my screen right now. Even Steve Jobs of Apple sometimes responds to direct emails from people, sometimes kind of crankily. And every time he does, the person is just knocked out and usually runs to some website to publicize it.
I worked in a development office years ago that every week we had to pick donors to call and thank you, and the call always starts the same. Hello, this is Beth Braxton. I'm calling for, and they go, because they're thinking, oh gosh, I just made a gift. Are you going to ask for another gift? And you say, just called to say thank you so much for your gift. We really appreciate it. Oh my goodness, I wish I could have given more. And then they'll start telling you, and it's you don't have to call everybody, but randomly pick some. And we have several students who work in our office, and at the beginning of every week, our departmental assistant is running a list of first-time young alumni donors and dividing that up, and each of the students will write a couple, whatever, 15, 5, 4, I don't know, however many, thank you notes, and that on note cards that will be hand addressed with a real stamp, and just saying, you made your first gift this year, I'm a student at Carolina, I'm involved in, and they'll write the letter, and we're going to look at it and say, okay, that's good, how about if you add this to it? But so they're going to do that, and we're going to see, does it increase our first-time donor retention rate in young alumni?
Okay, we are getting short on time. One quick question, do we ever use alumni signers? Absolutely. They can be terrific ones. Someone asked if we're going to have these slides available for viewing. Absolutely. We will send these to you. Stephanie, back to you. But before that, I want to just say thank you to all of you for attending this and listening to us. And again, on this Rosh Hashanah day, we wish you a good and prosperous year in your annual fund. And if you've got any more questions, keep sending these in, and we'll get back to you. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeff and Beth. We received so many questions today about the program at North Carolina, and we will definitely be sending those to Beth to do a follow-up email to answer all of the questions that we were not able to address today. Also, tomorrow morning, we will be sending all of our participants an email with the presentation slide deck as well as a recording of the session. Beth has been so gracious to offer us some really great documents that we will also be sending out to you in the coming weeks. And any additional questions that you have, feel free to contact me directly or Jeff and Beth, whose contact information is up on the screen. Please keep in mind we do have a full schedule of upcoming webinars for the rest of 2010. You can visit our website at www.grenzebachlear.com and view our upcoming events to learn more about our upcoming webinars. Again, thank you to all of our participants, and a special thanks to Jeff Bradley and Beth Braxton for a wonderful presentation today. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.